Welcome to Athletes, Entrepreneurs, the Alumni Journey. I'm Rob Finkelstein, founder and CEO of Alumni Direct, where we've created a platform to help athletes and other alumni network and connect with each other and tap into various resources. And this show is all about athletes' transition out of sports. It's become such a major issue today between mental health and financial literacy. So we interview former college and professional athletes, and we talk about their journey, their transition out of sports, ultimately into successful business leadership and entrepreneurship. So excited today to have Adonai Mack. How you doing, Adonai?
I'm good. How are you, Rob?
Good. Did I say that right?
Adonai, but it's all good.
Adonai, man. Everybody out there, we practice this too. And so I'm so excited today. Adonai Mack.
Sounds good.
I said it. All right, good deal.
Rob, you're right on it today. Right on it.
All right, so he was a triple jumper and a long jumper at Morehouse College. And then he got into education politics for over 20 years upon graduating. And now he is the CEO of Child Action, which he's going to tell us all about. So talk about growing up playing sports. How did that shape you leading up into college?
Oh, man. Sports was sort of the main thing that kept me in school. I loved probably doing maybe two things as I was growing up. One was playing sports. The other one was reading comic books. And I started out early. I mean, I started playing soccer like most kids do nowadays. I started playing soccer, was pretty decent soccer player, had training from like Olympic soccer players and really enjoyed it. Played baseball when I was younger, played basketball as well, probably all the way up until I was in high school. But my main thing ended up being track and field. I was a junior high track athlete. I was an athlete in high school where I broke a whole bunch of my high school records, and then went to college. And I think that for me, it was really about building in a level of discipline, and being engaged in a sport where I actually really cared about being good. I care about being successful. I wanted to be, if I wasn't the best, I wanted to be one of the best. And I think also I sacrificed a lot. I often tell folks that my senior year in high school, I had a chance to go to the state meet. And the state meet, the regional championships were the same weekend that my senior class went on our senior trip to Disneyland and Catalina Island, and I skipped it.
Oh man, that's a sacrifice right there.
Hey, I was like, nope, I'm going to the state championship. I'm going to win this thing. And I cared more about that than anything else.
Did you win it?
No. I mean, I won the regions. Yes, I did win the regions. I was number one in my region. But I went to the state championships. I think I was sixth in the state. And it was funny. So I grew up in Sacramento, California. And I grew up in Davis, California, which is right outside Sacramento. And generally during track season, it gets up to the 90s as you get into May and June. Our state championship was in Southern California. So I'm competing and it must have been like 70 degrees. So I was freezing. I just wasn't ready for cold weather. And I did not perform well at all.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I was a little culture shock when I was in high school. I went out to California and I just assumed that California was like just sunny and hot, like in the summertime, not realizing because like we started out in San Francisco, went down to San Diego. So it was just like, okay, didn't bring a lot of sweatshirts and stuff like that. I wasn't too prepared.
Right.
Yeah, definitely different. Was there a dream then of being like an Olympian? What was your,
at the time I was jumping pretty well in high school and I just, my vision is like, oh, I might have a good opportunity to get to become an Olympic athlete. And all through college, maybe the closer I got to my senior year, that ideal sort of dimmed a little bit. But certainly as a freshman, I was thinking, if I put in some work, some quality work, I might have a good chance to become an Olympic athlete. I grew up in the 80s. I was in college in the 90s, and there's incredible athletes like Carl Lewis, Mike Powell, Mike Connolly. Those were all the real great jumpers at the time. And I kind of thought, I was like, okay, maybe I'm in the long jump. I was maybe like 2 or 3 feet from able to compete. And then maybe I was like, maybe I'd say 8 feet in triple jump, maybe. Now that may not seem that far, but that is a huge distance to try and overcome as a young 19-year-old. And it was just really far. And it takes a lot of work to get there. And I think what I learned in college is it's one thing to be a really, really good college athlete. It's a whole different ball game to be a professional track and field athlete. It's no different than a lot of other sports, right?
Right.
You hear all that stuff about it's only 1% of the football players in high school become NFL players. It's a different level of commitment. It's a different work ethic. And I think that when you're trying to get to that level, to understand not only do you have to have talent, but with talent, there's a work ethic, there's a nutrition plan, there's weightlifting. Like there's all these different parts to it that when you're younger, you just think it's all going to come together. You think, oh, I'm talented. I can figure this out.
Right.
And then you start doing it and you're going, okay, yeah, I'm good. And maybe I work hard, but maybe I don't really know what hard work looks like.
Yeah.
And I think that's the realization that I got sort of as I went through college and got closer to my senior year.
Yeah, and I think that happens a lot, and especially, yeah, because I was going to ask you next about, was there education? I know, when we were in school, there was a lot of education on the transition out of sport, but I think today it's probably different. But one of the things I talk about is that, like you, I was in track and cross country, and I think as a track athlete, like you just said, there's a lot less opportunity, especially back in the day when we were doing it. To have that professional career. So most likely you're already kind of planning your future. Whereas it might be a little bit different today, but that's what we talk a lot about other athletes, especially like some of these football players that have the aspiration of playing in the NFL. They don't know what to do next. So I mean, was there any type of education, or like do you see it at all today at schools, or like going back to Morehouse?
Yeah. So back then, I don't think that the people really talked about what that next level would look like. I mean, if you were that good, people found you. You would be in that sort of career path, if you want to call it that, of moving towards being a world renowned track athlete. But I also think it's a little different when I was kind of coming up than where it is now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot more opportunities to get sponsored, to get an NIL deal, to have access to track and field clubs, to get a sponsorship by a major athletic company. Like, there's more opportunities to do that. I mean, when I was growing up, it was like Nike and Adidas. That was it. New Balance. Like those are like the only companies, and no one really made apparel. It wasn't a lot of opportunity to really be able to have access to the type of funding that it would take for you to become a track and field star. Not to mention, I mean, if you look at track and field now, it's still much more of an international athletic activity. And so if you weren't overseas, like if you weren't going to the big track meets overseas, if you weren't good enough to do that, you weren't going to do that in the United States.
Right.
There just wasn't an opportunity to do that. And I think there also wasn't anyone who was going to say, hey, here's what it's going to take for you to do that. I think my coach was really great at preparing us for what life would look like after being at Morehouse, because for a lot of us, he was like a second father figure. He was his sayings. I mean, we always kind of chuckle and tease about the sayings that he would have for us, but he was big on, look, when you're on this track, you're really trying to beat people and you're trying to win and you're trying to put forth your best effort and really crush people. Because what's going to happen when you leave this track, life is not going to treat you well. Right? We were all black men at my school and on my team. And he was pretty clear when you get into life and when you get into the business world or when you're in society, there's no one that's going to be there that is just going to help you and give you every opportunity. People are going to try to diminish you. They're going to try to crush you. And so his perspective was, you need to learn when you're competing that you're competing to win. And he was really trying to build us and uplift us and give us a foundation to ensure that even if we weren't going to end up being the number one athlete or the number one person in our conference, at least you're going to put forth the effort and be up in there. Be in the top 3, be in the top 5, top 10, and be prepared, because the person that's in that other lane, the person that is lined up behind you on the runway, the person that's behind you in the shot put, they're trying to beat you and they're trying to crush you. And so you need to be prepared to respond accordingly with your best effort. And he was pretty serious about that.
So let's talk about the importance of networking, connecting, especially while you're still playing your sport.
I would say that I think that what I've realized over the years is that my track teammates, and something that my coach, certainly my coach Willie Hill, that was our coach during when we were in Morehouse. He was big about us supporting each other. And I think that what was being built, which continues today, is my track and field brothers were all like, we all got close because we were all competing and working out with each other every single day, 7 days a week. And I think what ended up happening is we just built a network. We're all reasonably close to each other to this day. And we're all over the country. And well, I should say this, we're all over the world, more like it. And I think what that built was, it built a certain network for us to be able to communicate and support each other as we grew up and became adults, business owners, business leaders, entrepreneurs, PhDs and professors, fathers, husbands, and we continue that relationship. I mean, to this day, even the folks that I ran track with, we now are, we formed an alumni association, and we try to raise money for our program at school. We've had relationships where we've recommended each other for jobs, or been letters of recommendation, or even have been appointed help folks get appointed by certain positions. I mean, that is sort of what we've done just because of the network that we have. And I think it's very similar to any position that you take. You take your network with you. And that's big in my part, like my job in general, and what I've done over my career is about relationship building. And I think that it's been valuable, not just, those skills that I built being an athlete, whether it's on the track and field or if someone's on the court, the relationships that you build with your teammates, those sustain themselves. And I think it carries over into the relationships that I've built throughout my career.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's you have your team, and I'm sure like there's probably other classes, like either older or younger, that kind of all ultimately kind of integrate together. Was there much interaction cross sports? Because I know you mentioned, and you have this conversation a lot, where you've got 7 days a week you're with all your other fellow track mates versus interacting with, let's say, the football or the basketball team or the baseball team. Was there much of that when you were in school?
Yeah, there was. I mean, and it was, maybe some of it was, part of it was probably because we had athletes who played multiple sports. So we had a lot of the football players, right? A lot of the football players would be running track in the spring. So some of the linemen would be shot putters. The receivers or running backs were our sprinters, that type of thing. And then I had one of my closest friends was a high jumper. He also was the starting center on the basketball team.
Okay.
And so we had some of that cross like program interaction. Football, it's probably football and track was maybe the strongest because the football players were out there at the same time that we were. Right. We share the gym, we share the weight room. We're in the stadium, they're in the stadium. And then the basketball players, they're all practicing. We all practice around the same time. So we're also all eating at the same time at the end of the day.
That
right?
makes a difference. Yeah.
And I think that being an athlete, you would develop relationships because, not only would we see each other either in certain spaces, whether it's because we're training or that, before, that conditioning, we'd see each other conditioning before our actual season started. So you would see the basketball players out on the track while we're running cross country, or the football players out there during the summertime while we're also training. At the end of our season is sort of the beginning of their season.
Right.
So we would just be around each other on a regular basis. And supporting each other. I think that that's really what it was about too, is you're supporting your fellow athletes. And then you get to know it. I mean, you see each other sort of casually, but then some other folks have better relationships and you get brought into those circles. Even now, like it's nothing for me to, during our homecoming, to be walking through the football tents and to see some of the athletes that I know that play football. And we all recognize each other and have our community, because athletes have a community. Let's be honest. Yeah. We always have something to talk about, whether it's a tough practice or how difficult coach is on some people, the experiences with different coaches. Like our coach, Coach Hill, was also a football coach during that time. So he worked, I think he was a defensive backs coach or assistant defensive back or defensive coach coordinator. And, he ended up running the track program as well. And so I think that there was always this connection to football. So our relationships with the football team was always a little different maybe than some of the other sports.
Yeah. And I think it's probably dependent on the size. I mean, some of the bigger schools probably don't necessarily have that opportunity, but it's something we always talk about and encourage athletes. I mean, you brought up a lot of good points in there just about athletes having a similar skill set and the DNA, and they should be networking together. It's another group. You all went through the same kind of thing growing up, just different sport, but same stuff. So definitely working together and networking, connecting, I think is, we encourage it. It's really important. So let's talk about alumni engagement. So when you were there, were they bringing back alumni to kind of mentor and work with the current athletes?
Yeah, I would say this now. We have maybe one of the most famous alumni that ran track. Edwin Moses went to Morehouse College, right? And so growing up, he was the best 400-meter hurdler in the history of the 400 meters. He held all the records, and our track is named after him. And so he certainly would come back to campus, talk to the team. And I think that over the years, there was other athletes that, because of their affinity for track and field, they would come in and support the program. If you fast forward to now, I think that we've actually tried to formalize that a little bit more. Certainly with some of my classmates that I ran with, or teammates that I ran with, they've really worked to formalize an alumni sort of environment where we can mentor and support the current team. And I think that we've worked really hard to try and implement something like that. Matter of fact, it's one of my teammates who sort of leads that work. And so whether it's like homecoming or a big track meet, we have Morehouse relays. Those who can come to support the program fly into Atlanta, have some time with our current track and field team or cross country team. I think that we also try to go to some of the major track and field events, whether it's the indoor nationals or, the indoor conference championships, outdoor conference championships. I think that we, as an alumni, we try to attend as many of those as possible. Sometimes it's the folks who ever live the closest. I'm all the way in California. Our school's in
Oh,
Atlanta, Georgia. Um, it's not always the easiest trip to make, given people's different schedules. But we certainly do have a cohort of alumni that come down to help mentor the current team. Also to be a sound drop, for them to kind of listen, or for us to listen, really, and kind of hear what their needs are, and then try to figure out ways for us to support.
yeah, that's great. I think more schools need to do that, and I think more probably are now. It's just that re-engaging their alumni athletes, regardless of the sport, just kind of bringing them back to mentor both the current athletes and then the alumni athletes as well. Not just for that homecoming game or for the golf, but just on a regular basis. I mean, we've talked about doing monthly networking events where, like, each month we would highlight a particular athlete at that school, and then talk to them, and then put it together as networking 45 minutes, an hour after that, and just giving that current population as well as some of the alumni athletes just that opportunity to kind of re-engage with everyone. So it's good. So I'm not sure if you got a chance to watch or listen to any of the episodes. So I've always got the questions I like to ask. So if you did, you're prepared. If you didn't, you're not prepared. Not a big deal. They're not hard questions. So if you could go back in time, back to freshman year, what advice would you give to freshman Adonai? 10 words or less.
Get in the weight room. That's what I would have told.
I like that's the first answer I've had like that. That's good.
Yeah, I would say get in the weight room. I think it was probably one of the one things that I didn't do as well that would have made me more successful. I think here's one other thing I would say. Don't be timid.
The bonus round on that. So let's fast forward to senior. What would you say to him?
I would have told my senior self the first thing that comes to mind is to say, take some downtime to reflect and rest. I think I was exhausted by my senior year.
I mean, I think a lot of people, another answer a lot of people say kind of the same thing, is just kind of enjoy the time.
Yeah, enjoy it.
Here we are years later. We're like, hey, those glory years of college, wow, they went pretty quick.
It went really fast. I mean, I think my junior year, that was a year I went to nationals, and I think my next year I was just tired, and I didn't perform as well. And I think it's really tough too, because you think about you're spending, I don't know, 3 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you're running, jumping, and lifting. Like, that's all you do. And so between that and school and thinking about, oh, crap, I'm about to graduate in another 6 months or 9 months or whatever it is. And you're like, I have no plan.
No, I mean, honestly, that's a big problem, which is a kind of a good segue into, like, what's maybe talk a little bit about your transition out of sport. I mean, like you said, growing up, you played sports and you were real active with the jumping through high school and college. So when it was over, how did you adjust to that?
I think it took a minute. I think there's there's a couple of things that were going on. I think one was, and so here's something I probably would have thought about as well, telling my younger self is, I don't know if I took all the opportunities for exploring what work would look like, right? Like internships during summertime. I just kept working out, right? And so I didn't really think about internships. And so I think part of my transition and I think a lot of young people, they don't always know what they're trying to do at 20 years old or 21 or whatever the case may be when you graduate. Some people do, they know exactly what they want. I mean, a lot of us athletes, I think that we're always thinking, no, I'm going to keep playing, or I'm going to keep competing in something. And I think that we don't always put forth the mindset that you're not going to play sports forever. Uh, and so for me, that transition was, I sort of had to figure out what I was good at besides being an athlete, whether it was working in politics or speaking. And it took me a while actually to find that. I mean, I went to law school for a little bit. It wasn't really a strength of mine. I worked some odd jobs. Um, and I think once I started my career, one, I was a little older. So I was probably like 27, 28 years old when I started my career after doing some odd jobs here and there. Um, but I think what I realized is I found what I was good at.
Yeah.
And I understood my family is a political family. And so I understood how politics operated. I ended up figuring out like I'm really good at developing relationships with people. So it helped me navigate. And, like I reflect back on teammates and whether it meant like I was captain or I was a leader of we call it the jump squad. Sort of leaning on that and realizing, oh no, I'm good at speaking. I'm good at strategy. I'm good at building relationships. Once you sort of start to figure out those things about yourself and be reflective about who you are as a person, I think that's what really helped me transition. I think the other piece too is sometimes you don't really know what hard work looks like, and you think you do, right? Like I've been at track practice. I had a 3-hour track practice where I'm running sprints or I'm jumping up bleachers or we're throwing medicine balls around and you're sweating, your arms hurt, you're exhausted, your legs are all sore. But sometimes you don't realize like, okay, so what's hard work look like if you're not physically doing something hard? What's that mental model look like for you? And I think that I ended up putting the same type of work in it out of my career. I spent 12-hour days, right? There's lots of things I was doing after my 9-to-5 job stopped, right? That's networking. That's at the bar, at the restaurant, at a function. And I think once I kind of found my niche in terms of my first sort of career job, then you just start putting in the work like you did as an athlete. You just start chipping away at it. And then next thing you know, it's like 20, 25 years later, you're like, oh, wow. Boy, that went by fast.
In summary, maybe give a couple words of advice to athletes as they transition to sport, whether it's from going from college to the real world per se, or even as a professional athlete, go to the real world.
I'd say first and foremost, focus on your relationships. That's big. When you're struggling, you can lean on the people who have supported you in the past. I'd say get to know yourself, know what your strengths are, know what you're good at, and lean on that.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, two key ones there: the relationships and knowing about yourself. So let's fast forward. Like you said, you went through the political education throughout. So let's talk about what you're doing today at Child Action.
Yeah, so I lead an organization that's a nonprofit. We're one of the larger nonprofits in our county. We are what's called a child care contractor. So we administer a subsidy program that helps people who are eligible for it to pay for child care. We also operate what's called a resource and referral. And so it's a child care resource and referral. So we refer people to child care regardless of their income. And then we help individuals become child care providers, either in their home or at a center. And so we help them become licensed child care providers. And then we support our families through that, as well as we support child care providers. I have an organization of somewhere around 250 employees. And we serve 22,000 children, 11,000 families, and just under, I think, around 4,000 providers in the county of Sacramento, California.
That's crazy to think about, because you think about, then multiply it out by like everything else around the country. It's a lot.
Yeah.
lot of impact there. So I guess there's probably like, I don't see like sister organizations or whatever, like related organizations around the country that are doing the same kind of thing as you.
Yeah, there are. So California's a little interesting. So we have organizations like mine in just about every county. In some counties, there's multiple organizations. And then around the country's built a little differently. Um, most states have a statewide sort of resource and referral. And so they handle either the majority of the state or all of the state. And then also sometimes the state actually administers the subsidy program. And so, listen, California's a really large state, and
Right.
It probably wouldn't be an effective model for the state to administer both the referral services as well as the subsidy program.
Yeah, no, that's great that you're doing both. So, how can people find you?
Oh man, they can find me both at LinkedIn, Adonai Mack. You can always find me at LinkedIn. I have a Facebook page and an Instagram page. And then my company, Child Action Inc., we have all the same things as well. Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and probably on X as well. And that's sort of our group. I have a really excellent team. Do I do most of my posts? Sometimes. But also I have a really incredible team in the communications who keeps everything updated. All of the services we provide, all the events that I'm at, they really highlight our organization and the work that we do.
Yeah, that's great. It's great to hear about your organization and what you're doing to help families and their children. I think it's so important, and just making an impact on their lives. And you can find us at alumnidirect.com. The Athletes, Entrepreneurs, Alumni Journeys on our YouTube channel, as well as across Spotify and Apple and all the other networks. And each week I kind of wrap up and just say that, I call them the nuggets, and just say that we got a lot of good nuggets today from Adonai and just all the other athletes each week. It's such an issue with athletes transition out of sports, and we really want to make an impact. So we encourage athletes and others to follow and listen to these podcasts. I think you can get a lot out of it, and we really want to make an impact. So, thank you so much. We really appreciate the time today.
Thank you, Rob. It was great talking to you. It was really fun. Thank you. I appreciate it.
That's great. It's been my pleasure.